Hey there, thank you for coming to my poster. My name is Mayanshva. I'm a PhD student from the University of Toronto under the supervision of Professor Sheila McElroy. And I'd like to share with you today our work on empathetic planning. When we think about empathy, this sort of miraculous, almost miraculous ability that we have as humans, this ability to share and understand the thoughts and feelings of another person. Um, this ability enables us to cooperate with other people, to reach solutions to many problems, and in general to just be kinder and nicer to one another. Um, and it's often wielded by us as humans as sort of a tool to benefit others. Right? I can put myself in your shoes and try to understand what you would do. So what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and how that will influence the way in which you choose your actions, right, towards achieving a certain goal. Let's take, for example, I'm referring to the left column. Let's take, for example, a person named Alice. Alice is on a bus. The bus is headed uptown, but Alice falsely believes the bus is, in fact, headed downtown. Right? This is, she may have just hopped on the wrong bus and did not notice the sign, and so on and so forth. But she has some false belief, and so while her plan is to get to downtown, she will not accomplish this goal by remaining on this bus. Now, Alice's virtual assistant suggests then that Alice get off the bus and get on the correct one, and gives her the information on this correct bus. And we can say that this suggestion made by the virtual assistant is predicated on the virtual assistant's ability to empathize with Alice, so put itself in her shoes, so to speak, to take on her perspective and understand that while it knows, that this is in fact not the correct bus, Alice does not know this. And so, a plan which will actually achieve her goal includes informing her of her mistake, that she is on the wrong bus, and informing her as well of the correct bus information so that she can actually achieve her goal. And all of this, again, requires the virtual assistant to put itself in Alice's shoes. Now, empathy has been discussed for um, centuries now, and the modern concept of empathy is a bit has evolved a bit later, but most of the literature discusses kind of two components to empathy: affective empathy and cognitive empathy. Where affective empathy is sort of the lower level component of empathy that develops earlier in life, and it's this ability to really share the emotional experience of others, where we could have a strong emotional reaction to someone else's sadness or anger, right? It might cause us to also be sad or angry. Whereas the cognitive empathy, which is the one we focus on in this paper, is a higher level component of empathy that sort of gives the empathizer the ability to take the mental perspective of another, and allowing the empathizer to make inferences about that person's mental emotional states, right? So the virtual assistant taking assuming the mental perspective of Alice, where she believes that the bus will take her to downtown, where in fact it's taking her uptown, and understanding that, making inferences given Alice's perspective, given her mental perspective. So again, that's the kind of empathy we focus on in this work. Now, where does or when empathy meets planning, how does it look like? And first, I'll just a note on planning. AI planning in general is the problem of finding a sequence of actions, a plan that can take us from some initial state to some desired goal state, right? And that's at the heart of the AI planning problem. And and importantly, in empathetic planning, we want to construct plans that are, as you can see here in the second bullet point, that are faithful to Alice's perspective, to the empathizee's perspective. And we claim that in order to empathize with with a fellow agent, for the virtual assistant, for example, to empathize with Alice, it must have a sufficiently rich representation and also understanding of Alice's beliefs and affective state, right? And in order to construct these plans that are faithful to Alice's perspective, of plans such as, informing her of the of the fact that this is in fact the wrong bus, and informing her also of the new bus information. And finally, we show in the work, in the paper, that if we don't require mind reading agents, we don't require the virtual assistant to to know and feel everything that Alice knows and feels, but rather that being empathetic enough, being sufficiently empathetic, is enough to generate plans that are at least as good as the best plan that Alice can generate by herself, using her own beliefs and capabilities. So Alice, for example, with her false belief about the bus, the best plan that she came up with, and in fact, followed, executed, is getting on that wrong bus. And a sufficiently empathetic agent, like her virtual assistant, that understands that she has this false belief about the bus, can generate a plan that involves her getting off the bus and getting on the correct bus, which is, arguably, because we know that her preference is to get to downtown and that's her goal, it's arguably better than her plan, which will not, in fact, achieve her goal. And so we formally define the empathetic planning problem, which again is kind of follows the theme of AI planning, where we have some initial state I, and we have the goal. And this is the actor's goal, Alice's goal, that we estimate. We can estimate it in various ways. And I won't go into the details here, but I will say that we use an interesting flavor of planning, namely epistemic planning, which has seen numerous advancements in recent years, including new powerful planners and various workshops and seminars. And it's a flavor of planning that is focused on reasoning in the presence of agent, belief, and knowledge. Right, so as I've mentioned, we want a sufficiently rich representation of Alice's beliefs, and so using this flavor of planning, we can formally capture Alice's beliefs and make inferences that are predicated on her beliefs, in this case, her false beliefs about the bus. So I'm going here to the right column, and I'll quickly talk about how we compute a solution to the empathetic planning problem, which is plan, right? We said that given the initial state and the goal state, in this case it's Alice's goal, we simply want to generate a sequence of actions, a plan that will get us from the initial state to the goal state. And another interesting component of this work that we don't focus on, in this paper, we actually did formalize this concept of integrating plan recognition and planning to first infer Alice's goal given observations about her behavior, which is basically plan recognition, and we can then use the goal that we estimate that Alice is following to perform empathetic planning. But again, we do not focus on plan recognition in this work, so we assume we have this G-act, Alice's estimated goal, and then, as I've mentioned, we turn to epistemic planning to arrive at a solution. So we give this empathetic planning problem to an off-the-shelf epistemic planner that can handle the beliefs, agent beliefs and knowledge. In this case, we explicitly represent that Alice has a false belief about the bus, and we also represent the beliefs and knowledge of the virtual assistant, which can then come up with a plan that is sort of aligned with Alice's perspective and is in fact better than the plan that she herself has come up with and is executing. And so this is fully implemented, and of course we want to evaluate this and to show sort of the diversity of tasks that we can capture using this rich representational framework of epistemic planning. and also to demonstrate how existing off-the-shelf epistemic planners can be used straightforwardly to solve such empathetic planning problems. And we of course want to see how humans perceive our system, specifically how they perceive the agent's empathetic abilities, as well as their perceptions of the agent's assistive capabilities. And to this end, we conducted a human a user study, with about 40 participants, and we show you can in fact scan the QR code just in the link to questionnaire box, and you'll see the full set of questions that the participants were asked, and the participant answered questions about 12 planner generated scenarios. So we encoded these 12 various 12 scenarios in in um, in logical form, and on a canonical form that a planner can accept, and we generated plans, which we manually storified, so converted them into more interesting scenarios that were then presented to the user. And interestingly, we had plans sort of generated by an empathetic virtual assistant that, as we've mentioned, can assume Alice's perspective, but we also had the planner generate plans um, um, that were generated by a sympathetic agent. And a sympathetic agent in this case is one that assumes that Alice shares its model of the world. And so a virtual assistant that is sympathetic will actually, assume that Alice knows, as it does, that the bus is headed in the wrong way, and so will not, generate an appropriate plan, right? Will not inform Alice of her mistake, and so on and so forth. So these sympathetic agents served as a foil, and they were also, they were presented to the users, so they could so we could measure their perceptions of them. And so, for each of these scenarios, the participants were asked to rate a couple of claims, including, how whether or not the virtual assistant was able to successfully take Alice's perspective in the scenario, and whether or not, if they were in Alice's shoes, they would find the virtual assistant helpful. Um, and very sort of happily, and these results are kind of promising. We found that the participants, 87% of them either strongly agreed or agreed with statement one about the virtual assistant's ability to take Alice's perspective, and 82% either strongly agreed or agreed, or basically thought that the virtual assistant, such a virtual assistant, would be helpful to them if they were in Alice's place. And also, the results show a statistically significant difference that the participants found between the empathetic agent, between the plans generated by the empathetic agent and the plans generated by the sympathetic agent. Finally, these results, we can see they clearly demonstrate the potential benefits of such assistive empathetic agents in a diversity of scenarios, and we can see how participants had favorable perceptions of these empathetic agents. And I think we can all use more empathy in our lives, and if we could equip our AI systems with these empathetic like capabilities, I think that would be a tremendous step forward. So thank you for listening, and have a great time at IJCAI 2019 in Macau. Thank you.